Good afternoon to everyone. Thanks a lot for coming to this public discussion, which is entitled Monitoring of Customs Work in Ukraine from Business Perspectives. We are going to discuss customs procedures in Ukraine during the war, business assessments and expectations in 2025. And here we're going to traditionally present the findings of our surveys. Our institute has been holding those annual surveys for about 10 years. And these are the surveys to see how business assesses the work of the customs and how the business assesses overall the procedures it is faced with in border crossing. Before I tell you more about our agenda, and before I tell you how everything is going to be organized, let me give you a couple of technical hints. So first of all, we are staying here in the room in the format of physical presence. We are offline, and we also have participants in Zoom. Some of our participants will also participate and speak from Zoom. Therefore, it's really important that when you get an opportunity to ask questions, speak to the mic. And it's also important to speak to the mic and not very fast, because we do have simultaneous interpretation of the event into English. So we will start our work, and actually the format is very simple. First, we're going to have some welcoming speeches from the representative of our donor, which is the International Renaissance Foundation, without which we wouldn't have been able to do all this. After that, we will have the presentation of the results of the survey. I will deliver the presentation together with our senior research fellow, Johan Angel. And after that, we will have invited speakers taking the floor and responding to the presentation, commenting upon the findings or sharing their own insights. These are going to be Vladislav Suvorov, Deputy Head of the State Customs Service, Alexander Moskvanko, Director of the Customs Policy Department of the Ministry of Finance, Yulia Andrusev, Deputy Business Ombudsman, Ilya Zibnitsky, Director of the Association of Customs Brokers of Ukraine, and Andrei Butin, Senior Research Fellow of our institute. And then we will do the summary and the closing of the event. I hope that we will have all the speakers and we will follow our agenda and we will manage to do everything in time. So let us start. And now I would like to give the floor for the welcoming speech to Olha Kvashuk, manager of the Europe and the World program from the International Renaissance Foundation, which has been supporting us for already many years in holding the survey. And this year they have also supported us. So Olha, over to you. I hope you can hear me well enough. Great. So sorry for my not being able to join you in the offline format, but we have a lot of events this spring. So physically, I did not manage to come, but it's very important that we do have this presentation today. The foundation has, for quite a long period of time, promoting accession of Ukraine to the EU. We were focusing on the EU-Ukraine Association Agreement, and here customs comes as an important area of our work. That's why it's important that we have the Institute for Economic Research and Political Consultations as our partner. It's very good that you have been working on a long-term basis in this direction, and you've been the facilitator consolidating different stakeholders, different participants of those processes on the same platform. We have got feedback from importers and exporters. You engage the representatives of the State Customs Service, the Ministry of Finance, so all those who are in the process have a chance to jointly discuss some things, in particular new challenges. And there are a lot of challenges because of the process of integration and because of our striving for their accession to the EU. We are trying to establish new systems, new databases. So it's really important to get the feedback and it's also important that business could give feedback regarding what works well, what could further be improved. Therefore, let me wish good luck to all of us in this discussion, and thanks for organizing this event. Thank you, Olga. So I think that we may go down straight forward to the presentation. Let me give the floor to myself. We are presenting the 10th wave of the annual survey of Ukrainian exporters and importers. You do see the information. I will just mention a couple of things. So we will speak on how business assesses the efficiency of the work of the customs over the recent year, what has changed. We will speak about the expectations regarding the reforms at the customs. We will speak about quantitative and qualitative assessments and indicators that characterize the duration of different procedures businesses are faced with while in contact with the customs. We will also speak on grey imports or smuggling, and we will also touch upon a couple of new topics, because this time we asked businesses to assess the customs digital services or their experience of working with customs digital services. And we also hold a survey regarding what business associations our businesses are members of. So, just a couple of words about the survey sample. So, we had 345 enterprises dealing with either export or import or both. This is our audience, our respondents. You can see what industries are represented by those 345 businesses, and you can also see that we included different enterprises of different sizes. Most of them deal both with export and import. They combine those two vectors of activity. And the basis for our sample was industrial enterprises and enterprises that are trade ones. Also included service enterprises and enterprises from the field of agriculture. And I can tell you that we compared the data with other previous periods, because we used to have those surveys on the large-scale basis before the war. So in order to compare the current data with what we had before the war, we have to take the weighted approach. So here are our key messages. I'll be brief and cover them very quickly, because later we will speak about each of them separately. So the key value for us is the Customs Performance Perception Index, because we are definitely focusing on perception, on the perception of the customs and its work by businesses. So this index shows us that there is a predominance of positive assessments over negative assessments, though there was a slight decrease compared to 2024 and 2023. But in general, we considered that there is a steadily positive perception of the work of customs in wartime, which is a rather positive fact and finding, I would say. Another message is the demand for reform, and there we have traced minor changes. We consider that the demand for reforms and the demand for changes is there, and it is increasing. It has increased already. It's also important to mention that in the report that you will see later, we discuss all the dimensions, like the sector, the size of the enterprise, and over several recent years we have been studying businesses also through the prism of what transport it uses for export and import activity. And this year, the same as in the previous year, we saw that large businesses have a more positive perception of the work of the customs office than smaller enterprises, because small enterprises tend to give more negative evaluations. And the enterprises that use car give much better as grades, much better assessment than those using the railroad. This year we have had a very strange story because many of the evaluations given by our respondents show that there is a downgrade, a depreciation in terms of the companies that use railroad. So we don't know why we got such a result, and that is open for discussion. Here there is some information about the border queues at the border, but later I will show you the graph and it will be more visualized. Also, you can see the expected results of the reforms. So to be brief, we can see that business considers that the success of the customs reform is related mostly to the speed, to the reduction of the human factor. And I will also speak about that separately when I'm showing the graph. So this customs performance perception index shows that in wartime we had a decrease, and over the last 2 years, the index has been rather steady. So I think that in times of wartime, this is a manifestation of a certain degree of trust, if I may put it like this. This is all about changes. It shows what this index is actually based on. And here we've got some minor changes, like the share of those who consider that the work of the customs is good but it requires some changes has gone up, and the share of those who think that a large-scale reform would be required has gone down, which means that the share of those who would like to have large-scale reforms has gone down, while the share of those who would like just minor reforms has gone up. So here you can see our index, and here is something that I've already mentioned. Large companies have better perception of the work of the customs. And those who deal only with export also assess it better than the ones dealing with both import and export. And we can also see some increase in industrial enterprises. We can see that the perception of industrial enterprises has become better, as well as that of the enterprises dealing with services provision, while in trade it has gone down, and in agriculture just a slight decrease. And here is this distinction between those using cars and using railway. We can see that for exporters using car transport, there are no changes. For importers, it has improved by 5%, which is quite a good indicator. But as far as railway is concerned, something has happened, which is subject to discussion. You can see that there is a small share of enterprises using this mode of transport, but this is sufficient to represent the changes in the graph. So here are the problems in the work of the customs that we were trying to focus on. So queues at the border still remain the main problem, the same as in the previous year, but their importance of those queues has gone down, because in 2023 it was 67, now it's 48, which shows that actually the measures taken have led to the situation when there are some improvements, but still the difference between the year 2024 and 2025 was zero. It was actually no difference in spite of major changes. So insufficient breakthrough capacity of border crossing points is still there, which means that infrastructure still leaves a lot to be desired. This should be our priority at the moment. Also, quite often we have such a problem mentioned as imperfect customs legislation, but the share of the people choosing this option has gone down. But people normally tend to ask us, what do we mean by this? So for several years, we have already been asking businesses this question. So this year, a quarter of our respondents said that this is imperfect interpretation of the rules. So this is like one of the most frequently mentioned ones. So it's not about the norms per se, but about the interpretation and application and enforcement. Then corruption. This is something definitely which definitely needs to be mentioned. Normally, when we speak about Ukraine, everybody expects that we will tell something about corruption. So corruption is on the list of problems, but the share, the importance of corruption has gone down, in their opinion. It went to the 6th place from the 4th place in the ranking. And you can also see that the share of respondents that considered that this is a problem has gone down from 30 to 21%. Well, if we compared it with all the previous years, we would see that, let's say, in 2024, there was a drastic decrease as compared to 2023. So this is what is happening. As far as internal cuisine, like changes of inspectors, of the management is concerned. So this is not treated as a problem. Businesses claim that either those events are not there or that doesn't have any impact. Of course, the problem was the shortage of staff has become less important as businesses think. And again, if we have a look at the dynamics, so the decrease would be like this. Then here you can see the assessment of the work of the customs over 2 years, and mostly, well, 47.5% of our respondents rated the work of customs as good or excellent, and only 5.8% gave low ratings. So, well, it's like at school, or school. Where low grades were just 1s and 2s. So the average rate is 3.5, not changed. The average assessment of customs performance, and most of the respondents do believe that the efficiency of customs has not changed compared to the same period in 2024, while 10.3% believe that it has worsened and 17.4% say it has improved. So overall, we get a positive balance between those negative and positive grades. The value is positive, so it shows that in wartime it's quite good. Well, then assessment of specific aspects of the work of customs. So we speak about technical equipment, overall impression from communicating with customs officers, competences of customs officers, and thoroughness of inspection. So our respondents claim that the diligence, the thoroughness of inspection has improved, and as far as general impression competences of customs officers are concerned, so you can see these are the two indicators. They have got higher grades, and as far as technical equipment of the customs is concerned, out of all the 4 aspects, it got the lowest grade, but you can see that there are no major divergences. Again, as I mentioned it at the beginning, micro businesses give worse grades, while medium-sized and large companies give the highest rating. And here is again the story of railway and sea transport. Then, what are the expectations from customs reform? think there are a lot of unknown values here, but this is our ranking for 2025 and to compare with 2024. So reduction of time of customs procedures, 51% of our respondents claim that this is their major expectation, while all the other expectations go with a substantial gap as compared to this one. It's like reduction of the financial cost of customs procedures, ability to submit documents only in electronic form, minimizing human factor or automation of procedures. That's something I actually started with. Reduction of corruption, which is also the expectation getting a lower process, but probably a lower share, but probably this is because business sees that something is improving. Then improvement in the technical equipment of customs, probably businesses also have seen some changes, and that's why the share is lower. Then the share of those who think that trust of businesses in customs is supposed to increase has gone up. Well, and let me also draw your attention to strengthening smuggling, fight against smuggling. So last year, the expectation was that this is highly important, and the figure here was 21%, but now only 9% of businesses mentioned this. So either the event, the phenomena of smuggling has changed, has gone down, or businesses have seen some other priorities. Well, here is the same that I've mentioned, but only written in words as a description. As far as importers, and depending on the size of the enterprise, we can see that there are some changes in the priorities, but reduction of time is important for everyone. Let's move on. Here you can see the same for enterprises of different size, and let me draw attention to the fact that automation and minimizing of human factor comes as a very important factor for micro companies, micro enterprises. They really need this automation badly. Well, here we can see some difference for the services sector because they mainly focus on financial costs. And now let me give the floor to Yevhen. Yes, I should give the mic to you. Good afternoon again. So, within 6 waves of our survey, we have kept traditionally asking our exporters and importers about their direct experience of going through specific types of procedures. In particular, we asked them about the duration of customs clearance, custom examination, because we understand that this experience really has an imprint on the ranking, and there are some things that actually do confirm this assumption. So the first question is how business assesses the duration of customs clearance, phytosanitary control, and other types of customs control. So in general, it can be stated that business is rather positive about all the types of control, of which we have 4, because the share of the respondents who claim that they didn't face any problems while going through those types of control. Let's say in 2025, the businesses considered that there are no problems, and the share of those is 35% regarding the customs control, and 58% also said that they didn't have any issues with veterinary and phytosanitary control. So this problem is regarded as the one of low importance. And we also have a very low share of enterprises stating that this is a major problem, and they give 4 or 5 points here. So as a result, the average score is rather low for all types of control, all 4 types of control. It's about 1 point out of 5, plus minus several tens of after a comma. So most enterprises do think that it's not an important problem, but there are some differences. If we have a look at the enterprises of different types, it also depends on whether we are talking about a business that is an exporter or an importer. And you can see that for pure importers, all the 3 types of customs control, but for the pure customs control remains important. But at the same time, we may have a look at the 1 point which goes to phytosanitary control for pure importers, and 0.6 for pure exporters. So the difference is not significant, and this problem is not considered to be a real problem by anyone. The next important issue is the speed of customs clearance. We traditionally ask our businesses dealing with foreign economic activity how long the customs clearance took them, and how they assess the speed of customs clearance according to a 5-point scale. And here you can see that there are some changes, minor changes as compared to the previous year, because in 2024 the average duration was 6.5 hours, while in 2025 the average time is 6.9 hours. But we do see some interesting changes if we have a look at the enterprises of different types. So let's have a look at the pure importers and pure exporters. And here we see a very important change, because it used to be the case that there was a major difference between exporters, importers. The importers normally indicated several times longer duration of customs clearance. However, this difference in wartime kept shrinking, and in 2025 we could see that the value became almost the same for pure exporters and for pure importers. If we have a look at the enterprises coming from different industries and different sectors, we can also see some important changes. In particular, we do see that quite low is the duration of customs clearance for the service provisions sector, which in the first 2 years of the war, 2022-2023, indicated that it takes quite a long time to do customs clearance. So I have to indicate that the services are represented by transportation or logistic companies that have good experience of working with the customs. And we think that the first 2 years of the war produced a very bad experience for our transportation companies, because in the first 2 years the duration was about 60 hours, and now it's 6. So the shortest duration is for agriculture, like a little bit more than 3 hours, though it increased as compared to the previous year. Also, we can see that the duration of customs clearance for different businesses of different sizes is pretty much the same. But for some reason, large-scale enterprises claim that duration of customs clearance is longer than small enterprises and SMEs in general. We also ask businesses following the same scheme about the duration of customs inspection. And here you can see some changes that the duration of customs inspection increased from 3.2 hours to 3.4 hours, which is not a major difference. We can also see that there is still a difference as far as duration of customs inspection is concerned for pure importers and exporters. And for services, we can also see high duration of customs inspection. And here I'm talking about enterprises that are transportation companies delivering trucks, delivering freight. For them, it's longer. Large businesses indicate that duration of the customs inspection is longer than SMEs. It was also already for the second time that we analyzed our results regarding the duration of customs clearance and inspection by different modes of transport. And here we can see some interesting changes that have already been announced by Oksana. We can see that the situation with the duration of those procedures got a little bit worse for railway transport. In particular, if we have a look at the customs clearance in 2024 for export, for rail transport, it was quicker than for those dealing with cars and trucks. But in 2025, we can see that the duration for rail transport increased from 5 to 8 hours, which is quite a serious change. For import, it also is about 8 hours. That is the duration of customs clearance. But unfortunately, last year, we didn't have a sufficient number of respondents dealing with rail transport. That's why we could not be tracking the changes as far as import is concerned. And for customs inspection, identical patterns are observed. We see that the duration of customs inspection has increased if the company is importing its freight by rail transport. The next point is about the overall time spent during customs procedures. And here we can see some positive changes. Let's say if we have a look at the time spent per one operation, we have some reduction because we used to have 11.6 hours versus 10.6 hours now. So this is for importers going through customs procedures as compared to exporters. And you can see that in 2024 we used to have 18 for import, and in 2025 it's almost 12 hours, which means a reduction by 1/3 as far as the average costs of one operation are concerned. And for exports, it's 12 as compared to 10 in 2025. So these are the major changes as far as the duration of customs clearance is concerned. And I already showed it on the previous slides that both for import for export, the duration of customs clearance is already almost the same. And we can also see the average time spent for all customs procedures by modes of transport. So this situation here is pretty much the same. I would say the time spent increased for rail transport almost twice, and this is for export. We can also see some changes. We can see that large businesses claim that they spend more time now than small businesses claim. And this is as far as the side of companies is concerned. And as far as sectors are concerned, so the highest time, the largest time spent is for services, but also for industry. And we asked businesses about the changes in the time spent during customs procedures as compared to the previous years. You can see this as a balance value. This is the difference between the share of enterprises for which this time increased as compared to the ones where the time decreased. And we can see that as compared to 2024, the index went a little bit upwards, both for export and for import. And this may well reflect those minor changes in the average duration of customs clearance from 6.5 to 6.9 hours. There is another issue that we have to discuss because normally this issue was in the focus of our attention, and this is the issue of how the experience of our exporters and importers of working in other countries, in the neighboring countries, how could it possibly affect the perception of the work of the Ukrainian customs? That's why we decided to ask our respondents the following question. Did they have any major problems, barriers, hurdles created by the customs authorities of the neighboring countries? And the results are interesting because most of them have said that no, and only 17% said that yes. But the results are different for different types of enterprises. In particular, mostly it is the service sector, which is represented by logistics companies, claims that this is the problem that they normally encounter in the neighboring countries. We also asked our respondents, I mean the ones who had such problems, what countries these problems arise in, and we can see that the leading country here is Poland, and you can see that there is a major difference between Poland and all the other countries. So almost 50% of those respondents said that these problems appeared for them in Poland, then Hungary, and then Moldova. But probably it's a well-expected result because we have Poland as the main gate of Ukraine to Europe using land transport. Well, here are some results related to the service sector. As far as the sizes of enterprises are concerned, so mostly we have seen that small businesses face problems more often, but maybe that's due to some sectoral peculiarities. And here is our next blog, but Oksana will say about great import. So we also ask our respondents about smuggling or great imports, and we're asking about the perception. We ask them what is the share of great import in the area where they work, I mean in their sector, in their industry. And here you can see the findings represented on the graph with many figures. So this is assessment of the share of great import. And we compare this data with 2020, so you can see that over the recent years, the share of those who are aware of availability of this great import has increased. We used to have 26 and now 28% of people who are aware. No major changes recorded, but still there has been an increase in the share of those who consider that this share is about from 30 to 50%. But as far as the average estimate is concerned, we can actually see that the trend has been broken that we used to have before. And now, in the opinion of our respondents, the average share of great import in their trade markets is about 17%, while last year this figure was 11.6%, which shows that probably we have a lot of work ahead of us. Next slide, please. Well, yes, here are the breakdowns by sectors. So I think that I can tell that those enterprises having both export and import are more confident about their ideas and about their perception, but we also need to get the average estimate, so we can see that the service companies, which are mainly transportation and logistics companies. For them, the average assessment of the share of credit import is 31.9%. Well, 5% for agriculture, and then you can see some other industries. And I think that we need to speak quicker because we don't have that much time left. Okay, here is another block of our presentation dedicated to different digital services and the sources of information used by exporters and importers. It was the first time that we asked our respondents whether they use this single window or one-stop shop, in particular the personal account on the portal single window. And we can see that 54% of our respondents say that they have been using this personal account on the portal single window for international trade. Large businesses and medium-sized businesses tend to be more frequently using those personal accounts. And by sectors, about 70% of agricultural companies use this service, and this is the highest share for all the sectors. And we also asked the respondents using the single window, what are the services within the single window that are important for them and that they have used over the recent year? And they claim that they mainly use the services that are related to the main customs operations, like sending documents to the customs, permit documents, and the status of payments and settlements with customs. And the most active users are the companies that deal both with export and import at the same time. They tend to be using all the services within the single window at a time more frequently. We also ask our respondents whether they are using the Telegram bot of the State Customs Service, and almost 63% of the respondents are aware of this Telegram bot's availability, but about one-third are using, about 30%, 34% of the respondents use this Telegram bot. And the perception of the experience of using this Telegram bot is mainly positive. The average assessment is 4, according to the 5-point scale. And the assessment does not differ very much for different enterprises of different sizes. But it's of interest that importers have a little bit better perception than exporters. But the difference is only 0.5%. It was also already for the 6th time that we asked our respondents whether they are using the business portal, which is now the main digital platform for getting information. And we can see that there is a steady trend towards increased use of this portal. And based on the results of the year 2025, we can state that Dia Business was used by 64% of the exporters and importers who were our respondents, while in 2021 this figure was several times lower. It was about 24, 22%. And this situation is different for different types of businesses. Let's say micro businesses are more frequently using those digital services. As Oksana has mentioned, micro businesses are more in favor of digitalization. We also ask our companies whether they are members of business associations, because we understand that business associations are a great complementary tool for promotion of your goods abroad and for getting some information. We can see a drastic increase in the share of respondents who belong to associations. So it was about 55%, while in 2024 we used to have only 40%. So this is a positive trend, in particular against the background of the war. Maybe it was war that encouraged people to stay together and get united. Now, companies that are both importers and exporters are more active. They are more prone to use different services, and more frequently they are members of business associations. Also, medium-sized and large businesses normally they tend to be members of associations more than small companies. And agriculture and industrial enterprises are members of business associations more often than enterprises in other sectors. If we have a look at how many business associations do businesses participate in, I don't think that anything has changed greatly. About 46% of enterprises are members of only one business association, and 2 or 3 belong to several of them. It's also important to note the sources of information on the regulation of foreign economic activity in partner countries and in Ukraine. And here we can see an important change regarding what information is used by our foreign economic activity entities in Ukraine. And now customs brokers have come to the first place, which means that official information is now most important for our enterprises to learn more about foreign trade regulation in Ukraine. And quite close to them are customs authorities. So actually, customs authorities are number one, and customs brokers are just 2 points after comma lower in the ranking. And the people or enterprises are using information from customs brokers for learning more about foreign trade regulations in partner countries. Here you can see the frequency of use of sources on the regulation of foreign economic activity. So before the war, businesses tended to use a wider palette of sources, but now we can clearly see a trend showing that business starts using information from the best sources of information in a more focused way. So if we have a look at the data of the on the regulation of foreign economic activity in Ukraine, so the number of sources has shrunk twice as compared to 2018. And that's all for me. Yes, and before I do the wrap-up of this presentation, I will speak about achievements and positive changes. I mean, everything that has taken place, how do we assess this? So, first of all, we do think that there is a steadily positive perception of the work of customs, which indicates the confidence of business and the trust of business in the customs during the war. The significance of corruption and non-transparency, reflecting the results of institutional changes, is decreasing. The use of digital services is expanding. These are the ones like single window, Dia Business, and customs office services, and they're becoming a part of the daily work of business, which is very important. Another point is that the role of customs authorities as the main source of information is increasing, and this indicates an increase in trust in official communication, and it also testifies to the importance of official communication. An institutional interaction of business or the institutional capacity of businesses to work with state authorities is growing because of this membership in associations, which creates better conditions for dialogues and with customs. And we still have some key challenges. Yes, please, next slide. So one key challenge is the request of the business for further changes and improvements in procedures remains there. Queues at the border are still there. This is an important change, but it's rather restricted in its effect. Therefore, we need to do something else about this. Also, we would need to see that there is a sudden increase in the time spent on individual procedures, and this indicates the need for further optimization of processes. The issue of great imports is being actualized again, which requires strengthening systemic solutions, and business experience remains uneven depending on size, mode of transport, and customs, which opens up opportunities for unification of practices or these perceptions coming from different groups. There is a potential for greater use of digital services in all groups, in particular among small businesses, where the request is that the demand is the highest, and business expects greater predictability in the application of customs legislation because it needs to be better familiarized with the customs legislation. So that's all for our presentation. The results, the presentation, the report, long and short report will be available online. The long report will not come soon, but it will be available in some time. And now we can actually launch our open discussion. And now I would like to invite two speakers from Zoom. So let me give the floor to Vladislav Suvorov, Deputy Head of the State Customs Service of Ukraine. Let me give the floor to you, Vladislav. So Vladislav is supposed to appear on our screen right now. Yes, good afternoon. I hope you can hear me. Yes, we can hear you, but we cannot yet see you. And now we can both hear you and see you. Great. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm really grateful to the Institute for one more presentation because for 6 years in a row I've been following your presentations where you're disclosing very important findings that are important for our work, our joint work, because those findings show us the bottlenecks and the areas where there is a need for some improvements and where we need to probably use additional resources to solve the problems. For example, today it came as a revelation for me to see the list of problematic issues, in particular the problem with rail transport. In 2025, we didn't receive any single complaint from foreign activity entities or from Ukrzaliznytsia regarding any problematic items with rail transport or with border crossing points. So for me, it came as a revelation. I will try to see what the reason for that is. Maybe the number of respondents changed in your survey and that affected the dynamics of indicators. But as far as I remember, one of the indicators for you was the time of customs inspection. So definitely for rail transport, it takes longer because the technology of doing the checkup and inspection is different as compared to the car transport. And for the first time since Ukraine regained independence, sorry, can you hear me? No, there was some technical glitch because we couldn't hear you. Is it on our side or is it on the side of the speaker? Maybe it's on our side because we do have issues with internet now. I hope you can hear. Yes, I will try to be louder for you to at least hear me. So last year we made the procurement for the construction of two scanners for rail transport, and now the Yahodin border crossing point is going through the process of repairs, and also in Mostyska we're going to introduce the scanner. So we hope that if the Ministry of Finance supports us, so it will be for the first time since Ukraine regained independence that we will speed up this process. I'm sorry, but we've lost Vladislav. So again, I would like to mention some positive findings of your presentation because you stated that overall the perception of business is positive. Definitely there is a demand for reforms, and these reforms are in the making. We are now implementing the reform because we have the national strategy, which has been under implementation since 2024. And in fact, all the paperwork has already been done in compliance with the strategy. What is left only to get the funding for buying technical means of customs inspection. We need to get the finance for the development of IT infrastructure. So we need money from the budget or from our development partners. 74% of respondents claimed that the work of customs is efficient or efficient, but in need of minor changes. And We already have the list of measures to be taken in order to do some improvements in our national strategy. Definitely, businesses are speaking about the speed, about electronic documents circle flow. So let me stress that last year we minimized the contact of businesses with customs officials. We have the fast track procedure envisaged by the tax code. Um, which presupposes actually that the procedures could take place with no engagement of customs officials right on the site of the enterprise. And last year, more than 15% of enterprises used this fast track procedure, and there were no customs officers, no officials actually involved in that process, which optimized the work. Also, we introduced automated registration, automated clearance for export goods, and from 4% we went over to about 6% of declaration or clearance of commodities with no participation of customs officials. And this year we are disseminating this procedure for the goods that are brought by automated operators or some entities which have the right, which are entitled to this fast track procedure and which deal with import on regular basis, and they have proven that there is no problem with their goods in all those consignments. Also, definitely we would need all this data and breakdown by different enterprises of different sizes. But, the customs procedures do not depend on the size of the enterprise. They are the same for everyone. As far as the gray input problem is concerned, well, you showed some data and we will try to scrutinize this data. The point is that gray input is the term which we do not use in our customs legislation. We use it in plain language, colloquially, but we normally speak about understated customs value or violation, or bring importing goods with in violation of intellectual property rights. So probably the respondents were not quite clear about what this term means. But if we speak about commodity smuggling, we normally call it not gray import, but black import. So probably it's the issue of terminology, but definitely we will also need to go into the data to check it and to see why we have such a high share of gray import. Well, unfortunately, last year we didn't have any major progress in this direction. We were trying to work with the neighboring countries, like with Romania. We had 2 pilot projects implemented, but we hope that this year we will ensure a better automated procedure of the information exchange. Also, I have to tell that unfortunately, not everything always depends on the customs office. As far as the queues are concerned, if we take the queues on the Ukrainian side of the border, this is all about Ukrainian export, and the customs clearance procedures are the minimum ones. So actually, everything is done before the truck comes to the border. If there is no suspicion about any concealing. But we definitely have some limitations in terms of the number of vehicles that we can take, and this depends on the other side, on the neighboring country. And we have this practice of signing a four-sided agreement, like the border guard and customs service of both sides, and they indicate in those memorandums the minimum number of cars that have to be passed through the border, through the customs inspection within 1 shift. So we've got such memorandums with most countries, but for Hungary, and the latest memorandum was signed last year with Romania. And regarding digital services, the positive thing is that more than half of the respondents are using this single window, which is really a very progressive mechanism that is even better developed than in some EU member states. And this single window performs a lot of functions besides the personal account you ask our respondents about. It also provides the function of getting some permit documents. So there is no longer any need to submit paper documents. You can get the permit for importing or exporting a certain category of goods. You can just do all this electronically uh, because they submit electronic declarations and we check all the data. Besides that, the single window is used to give the inquiries regarding some types of control, like phytosanitary control and other ones. Well, definitely there is a lot of work to do, and the Ministry of Finance has already adopted is now introducing amendments into the plan of the digital transformation and development of the state customs service. Uh, because we would need to further elaborate the systems that are already currently available. We need to further elaborate them for them to comply with the EU standards to ensure interoperability with the other systems of the EU member states. And then, when we become a member of the EU, our system will be fully compatible with the respective system of the EU countries. I would also like to mention another positive element regarding corruption at the customs. This indicates correlates well with the one presented by an ACP last week. According to their data, this figure is 21.8. With according to your data, it is 21.3, so it's almost identical. They presented this value within their annual survey last week. Of course, we still have to work on it, but the dynamics and the downward trend actually shows that we're on the right track. Well, that is briefly what I wanted to highlight based on your presentation. We will definitely be grateful if you provide us with this presentation for us to be able to scrutinize this and to somehow respond on our part in terms of actions. Thank you, Vladislav. Definitely, we will share our presentation with you, and let's hope that the changes taking place at the customs and all the other changes, really the changes that are, so to say, on the right track. Thank you. And now let me give the floor to Alexandra Voskolanko, Director of the Customs Policy Department of the Ministry of Finance of Ukraine. So the Ministry of Finance has already been mentioned today a couple of times. Over to you. Good afternoon to everyone. I can see that Victoria is raising her hand. Yes, good afternoon. I'm Victoria. I'm representative of the Dobrozvutok Energetika company, and I would like to ask questions. These are questions for Alexander and Vladislav. We're not the host, so please ask the organizers. Let us first give an opportunity to our speakers to present their comments, and then there will be a Q&A. Great. Thank you. So welcome once again to everyone. Well, I'm really happy to see the results and the findings of different surveys related to performance of the customs. And I'm very happy in particular to see drastic changes represented in figures. The reports prepared by your organization are the ones that we use in our work and in our dialogues with our partners. In particular, last year when we were drafting the mid-term plan for the implementation of the revenue strategy, we provided the reasoning based on different reports that were presented to us. And we really saw the result of joint work with the State Customs Service in those reflected in those reports. The classical measurement by the Ministry of Finance shows that there is an increase in the revenues to the state budget, but all this measurement also correlates well with another goal of ours, which is to reduce the time spent by businesses to go through customs procedures. We can see that the duration of customs procedures and customs clearance in particular is going down. The period of stay of commodity at different stages of administrative inspections is going down, because I'm talking here not just about the customs service, but all the other bodies. So all the measures that were elaborated for years as the result of our joint work have finally yielded the results. In particular, here we have been mentioning single window and a number of other procedures related to authorization, fast-track procedures, authorized economic operators. So we can see that in general, this all yields great results. And the key thing that we can see here is that with those measures, we are reducing the cost of businesses for their foreign economic activity, which is the best marker ever, because we realize that we are on the right track. I will not go into detail. I will not tell how much has been done over the recent year. However, we were doing some summary for ourselves, and we were focusing on the measures that aimed to improve integrity at the state customs service. And I'm really proud of the fact that now, when we have a look at the line representing the average salaries and wages in territorial bodies, the customs service is in the first line, which means that we finally have managed to provide the funding within the budget that has been allocated for the state customs service. We have managed to finance the wages for customs inspectors, and it was not just that we increased salaries for all officials. We did the breakdown of customs officials by their competences, and the highest increase of salaries was the one for those officers from whom we demand higher competences, like the ones dealing with customs clearance, customs inspection, customs settlements. So this enabled us to take a step forward. And now customs officers and customs officials actually started valuing their job, their workplace, and therefore they have started being more professional in performance of their job functions. And then there came the survey from you. Then also, and there was another survey under the auspices of the World Customs Organization, or on the one by NACP. So all of them show that the perception of corruption has improved. This is something that our partners would like to see from us, but the main thing is that we ensure good good business opportunities for our businesses. Our businesses really need to um, be entitled to having a dialogue with the State Customs Service as partners. I will not speak about a number of other measures that we have taken, not to take too much of your time, but let me tell what we are now working on. So together with the State Customs Service and together with the representatives of businesses, we are working on the new revised version of the Customs Code. Based on the results of our work, the draft code was elaborated, and last August, this draft was supported by the Cabinet of Ministers, and then it was given to our European partners, European Commission for official evaluation. It was evaluated by them, and in parallel with this process, we also held some consultation with businesses. We created a working group consisting of 15 representatives of different sectors and associations. We had 63 meetings, which all lasted on average 2.5 hours, which is quite a lot of time that we allocated to those consultations. We also got some proposals from businesses, from the European Commission, and incorporated all those comments into the text of the draft code. And then the new revised version of the draft code was sent out yesterday to all the ministries, to all the stakeholders, to the state executive authorities for approval. So we expect that in a week we will get some proposals from the ministries. We will get their feedback and comments, and we will submit this document to the government and then to the parliament. It's important that this code is actually adopted by the 1st of September 2026, which is quite a challenge because we will have to work a lot with our partners and with the parliament. But this needs to be done because then this new customs code will be enacted at the end of 2027. Well, as to 2027, we have already mentioned the figure December 2027 because that is the point in time by which we will need to develop new bylaws. And the key thing is also to develop IT solutions that will be fully functioning within the new legal framework. So that is quite a lot of work to do for all of us in the nearest months and years. And if we speak about all of that from the global point of view, so we have to tell that the new customs code is not introducing any drastic regulational changes because we are already now working based on the customs code that corresponds to the customs code of the EU by about 80%. Well, the estimates may differ a little bit, but changes presuppose a number of nuances, a number of changes as far as the details of formal procedures are concerned. So, let's say for the head of the company, well, he used to have this authorization, so it will still be there. Authorization of the premises and authorization of the premises for the customs processing procedure. So we used to have a questionnaire, an application about the confirmation of capacity, so that will all be there, still there. The forms, the templates of those questionnaires are also already there. So for the heads of enterprises, there will be no major changes coming. But for the people working with the customs, there will be a lot of new details, a lot of new things that will need to be performed in a little bit different way than they are performed now. So that's going to be a challenge because we will need to prepare the state. We need to also prepare the state customs service, and we need to prepare businesses for working with updated regulations. Fortunately, we don't have that much time as the EU has. We cannot do the planning for, let's say, 5 years. We cannot wait until all IT solutions are developed. We do have this overall horizon of 2030, which is the horizon for our accession to the EU. So at the moment, we are trying to comply with this timeline. In 2027, 2028, if we switch to new procedures, we will be able to confirm the capacity of Ukraine to follow EU rules and work within the EU system. But we will also need to pass conformance tests for our IT solutions, and they will confirm whether Ukrainian IT is ready to work within the European network of customs, and then the year 2029 and 30, these will be the years left for the voting in the parliament. So it's quite intense. We all do realize that within some clusters, we will probably have to introduce a transitional period, but as far as the customs office is concerned, we cannot be talking about any transition period because the Ukrainian customs office should be ready from day one to work following the same rules as all the EU customs. So we should be ready from day one to follow the rules of the EU. In parallel, we are also working on a number of other solutions. You've probably heard about a lot of customs initiatives. So to get back to the topic of your presentation and the topic of my speech, let me first of all express my gratitude to Ukrainian businesses and to the Ukrainian Customs Service because together with you, we are showing very good results. And I keep telling this at every meeting, and I will repeat it here that when we see the assessment of the performance of certain commitments by Ukraine or assessment of the state of readiness and the certain negotiations cluster. This is assessment not only of the Ministry of Finance or the State Customs Service. This is our joint assessment because the EU is assessing three categories: legislative compliance, IT compliance or conformity, and then the capacity of the state and the business to use both legislation and to use the IT infrastructure. So once again, let me express my gratitude to all of you because we are really going at a very high speed. I understand how difficult it is, how many resources, how much time and energy you have to invest into that. But altogether, we confirm it that in spite of the war, in spite of the full-scale invasion of the Russian Federation, the Ukrainian state is still showing a good progress on its way to the EU. Thank you. Thank you, Alexander. It's really not a very easy task to work together for the state and the business. I'm sorry, so we will still follow our agenda, and then if any time is left, we will allocate this time for a Q&A session. So let's go over to the business part. Business is partly satisfied, partly dissatisfied. Sometimes it complains, sometimes it doesn't. So we've got Yulia Andrusev, Deputy Business Ombudsman, or Ombudswoman, probably now. So over to you. What are you going to tell us about business? Welcome, dear colleagues. Yes, I've got a new head, and we call her a lady businesswoman because ombudswoman. I'm sorry, because ombudswoman is already the term registered in legal documents. You know, I saw one phrase in your presentation which you didn't focus on, but it stated that business is frustrated not that much about the legislation, but about the law enforcement. And that's something that we can really confirm from our own experience. And I have to warn you that our optics is very highly specific. It focuses on problems and issues because the Ombudsman Council has actually been established to respond to unfair treatment of businesses by the state. And definitely our point of view is much more granular than the results of this survey because we work with individual business complaints. Our complaints regarding the customs are included into the 5 top categories of claims that we've been receiving over our history of 11 years. And last year and the beginning of this year, these claims and these complaints constitute about 7% of the overall number of complaints that we have received. Probably we don't see all the issues that are a concern for businesses because some of the issues due to the procedure already go to court. some of the issues are not related to our line of activity. I mean, if there is something super urgent, because it's about the customs clearance of the goods that have a short expiry or shelf life, so this is not for us because our procedure does not envisage any urgent response. In general, in 2025 and the first quarter of 2026, most of the complaints businesses addressed us with were related to the stage of customs clearance, and 44.2% of them were related to the adjustment of the customs value, which is almost a half of the complaints coming from businesses. 29.5% were the claims related to delays in customs clearance or the reductions in the process of customs clearance. As far as adjustment of the customs value is concerned, so normally people address us in cases of systemic adjustments and not occasional ones. Let's say one of our last year complainants, the glass and fiber optic producer, got about 20 decisions related to adjustment of the customs value for almost all consignments. So it went to court in all those cases and got the decision in favor. But when the next consignment came, it was repeated again. So this company addressed us, and we managed to break this vicious cycle. So sometimes this problem may last for years with customs value adjustment. We have another case from last year where one complainant was the importer of the floor covers, and for 3 years it was getting decisions on the customs value adjustment for its consignment. It also went to court all the cases, and for every consignment it had to prepare large document packages. He had to also order some appraisal opinions regarding the value of the commodity, but it didn't help. So every time it went all over again, and there was customs value adjustment. But when we joined in the process, we identified the reason for that. Because it appeared that the customs authorities had questions regarding the technical specifications of the commodities and the specificity of payment under the contract. But last year we finally managed to reach a consensus with them, and now there is no customs value adjustment for this enterprise. We also get a lot of complaints related both to licensing and legal procedures. Let's say we have a case of import of one substance based on olive oil, which is an ingredient of cosmetics. But according to the classification of foreign trade activity, it is classified as fuel. So in practice, this means that the producer of cosmetic products is obliged to get a license and get registered as a payer of the excise duty, which definitely does not make its life easier. So we have been working at this case for a long period of time, but unfortunately, it can well be regulated only at the level of legislation. And here is another example dealing with the licensing of the import of goods containing ozone depleting substances. We were addressed by the company that was trying to import lithium ionium accumulators, 8 of them, but they failed to do this because while the commodity was on its way to Ukraine, the rules changed, and there appeared the new requirement for the licensing of this commodity because those accumulators, the storage batteries, were using some substances that were considered to be ozone depleting ones. So with our support, they managed to exclude this category of goods, lithium ionium storage batteries, from the list of goods for the import of which license is required. So this was the issue that was settled and fixed not only for this complainant but for the would-be importers. for the future. Another issue that we were also addressed with by business was the practice of revising the VAT rates. We normally get such complaints from pharmaceutical importers, and the customs authorities reject them. They don't want to apply the 7% beneficial rate because of the labeling of the products or because of some doubts regarding whether the drug is the final product, the end product. Let's say we had an issue with the import of gas was in large rolls. And the customs said that if these are large rolls, then the rate of VAT should be 20%, though the cut goes, which becomes bandages, is sold with the VAT rate 7% because it's considered to be a medical commodity. So we are also working on that. And we have received some complaints regarding post audits, let's say confirmation of the authenticity of certificates, Euro 1. This is quite a complicated process, quite a long one, and we need to engage not only exporting companies, but we also need to engage the customs authorities of the country from which the export has taken place. We had a situation when it was all fixed after the engagement of the exporter and after 2 rounds of communication between the customs authorities of Ukraine and Poland. But in general, we managed to regulate almost half of the complaints within the administrative procedure. So that is the rate of our satisfaction of the interests of businesses. Well, on the one hand, we have a look at individual complaints and we help uh, solve the problems. But on the other hand, we also analyze the complaints and we try to identify some systemic issues that need to be processed on a more underlying level. And we try to give recommendations to the state authorities on how those systemic issues could be eradicated and fixed. And such systemic recommendations that we have provided and that we keep promoting include two. First of all, transfer of the control of the customs value of the commodity to the post-audit stage, because we considered that this will be in conformity with European practice and it will provide us with better tools and more time for correct identification of the customs value, and there will be no delays in the customs clearance process. And the second item is establishment of KPIs for customs procedures, for post-audit, and for the administrative complaint or appeal process. So this is just in brief about our practice. Yes, thank you, Yulia. It seems to me this information is really very interesting and complements well the things that we have been discussing. We are a little bit behind the time, so we will have a small change. Ilya Zemlitsky will be the speaker who will do the wrap up, and then after him, you will still have a chance to ask questions. So, Ilya, welcome. Yes. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Thanks for having me here at this presentation of the research. The survey is really very interesting, and I would also like to tell that my impression of the findings is very positive. You mentioned imperfect legal legislation, customs legislation, and this figure improved almost by 50% as compared to the previous years, which shows that actually the reforms now being implemented in the customs are really contributing to good progress. Also, conscious overestimation, overstatement of the customs value is a problem which did exist, which will keep being in existence. However, businesses are advocating their interest in courts. They are complaining with the business ombudsman And we have recently had a meeting at our committee with the deputy head of the department, Svetlana Vikta, with the business representatives, and there we assessed several cases that were related to the allegedly illegal adjustment of customs value. So the compromise was found, and now those entities already keep working with no adjustment of this customs value. As far as corruption and bribery are concerned, I can also see it that as compared with 2023, the indicator was improved by 50%. So the impression is that the measures taken by the State Customs Service together with other authorities do create the good environment for the initiators of those corruption acts and for those who would like to be involved, say a number is like going down. So let's hope that the value of this indicator will also be going down. The lack of inspectors, again, there have been some improvements because we have the Department of the State Customs Service that holds trainings on a regular basis, and there are new practices of hiring staff for the customs. So we can see some update. We can also see that there are new people, fresh ones in the state authorities in general in the state customs service. As far as lack of professionalism of inspectors is concerned, again, we can see that the situation has become better, and we can see it in reality that inspectors are more competent about their treatment of customs brokers, of commodities, and of businesses. I would also like to draw your attention to digitalization as far as the single window for international trade is concerned and the Telegram bot as well. They're really being actively developed, and I think that this is happening because there is no red tape involved there. They can really freely develop the so-called free flow. That's why the State Customs Service quickly responds to the complaints or addresses coming from foreign trade entities, and you can see that this Telegram bot has been upgraded. There are some new functions there, and entities may be getting new information from it. Well, thanks a lot to all the members of the Association of Customs Brokers of Ukraine who were involved in the survey and who keep taking part in trainings, because training is very important, and we have been allocating a lot of time to trainings because that is the platform using which we can really train new people who will quickly master the knowledge and the skills, who will quickly learn how to work with the Telegram bot and how to work with the new legislation. Thank you. Thank you, Ilya. Based on the results of our survey, we could really see that the role of customs brokers in making businesses informed remains very high. That's why their professional competences are also important in this respect. Thanks a lot to Andrei Butin, our senior research fellow. He will present his comment in writing, and that will add some time to our meeting for questions, but we may have just one or two questions related to the core of the things that we are discussing today. Thank you. Artem Voskresensky, I'm the director of the Zolota Melia company. Last year was also present at this event. And, you know, we are Kharkiv-based. We produce ingredients for bread bakery and confectionery. We don't have many businesses now in Kharkiv, but we still keep going. And the statistics is as follows. From the end of 2021, we submitted 273 complaints to court. These were the ones related to customs value adjustment, and we won in most of them and got the money back. The court fee over this period of time has actually been 1 million, which means that the customs offices have brought some expenditure for the state, because the customs fee has to be paid, the port fee, I'm sorry, has to be paid by those who lost. So that is the debt of the state, but we are taxpayers, so the cost will be paid from our pockets. And all the more that judges are, there is scarcity of judges now, so why should we waste time on such things? And the situation has deteriorated, because we used to have cases related to customs value adjustment, but since November we have had problems with recoding of goods. Over this period of time, it was 7.7 million of hryvnias that the commodities were recorded. We used to have one code for those goods. We did it for 10 years, and then it appeared that the code should be different and we should pay extra money. And this is an endless story. Well, of course, we are going to courts and we will win, but that takes time, and that's like a problem. I had a look at the statistics and that you presented, and it appeared to me that either I live in a different country or otherwise I cannot understand the reason for that. Alexander and Vladislav were talking about shorter time of customs clearance, which is a good thing, a good news, but I would say that this is to the detriment of businesses, because this money, 25 million hryvnias over the period starting with 2021, is the money that was taken by us from the bank, and we actually invested this money into the revenues, into the turnover of the state, but we had to pay the interest on our credit. So we are in a way crediting the state. So my first question is for Vladislav and Alexander. A very simple question. When is there going to be the end to all that? And also, I would like to get better acquainted with Yulia Andrusi, because I hope that she will help us to get rid of those problems. Well, thank you for your questions. Yulia is here, so I think that you may get better acquainted with her after the meeting. And Vladislav and Alexander, if you're ready to give the answer, you're very much welcome. Well, in fact, the thanks I mentioned now correlate rather well with what Yulia said. She said that half of the complaints coming to the business ombudsman are the ones related to customs value adjustment. And it's clear, definitely, that the taxes is something nobody wants to pay in the amount determined by the customs authorities. That's why there are some controversial situations. And you mentioned that 250, 280, this is the number of complaints, and only in 30 of those cases you didn't win. So there was some objective reasoning. No, there is no single case where the customs won. 30 cases are not finished. The proceedings are not yet over. There is not a single complaint where the customs won over that period of time, because, those cases are really absurd. Well, not a single one over the period starting with 2021. Yes, are you going to speak, or probably will you still allow me to speak? So as far as the classification of goods is concerned, so this is the competence only of the customs authorities to identify what the code is, and this works well in accordance with the harmonized procedure convention. And Julia has been talking about the classification of goods brought in by pharmaceutical companies. Well, that was the strange story with the code for fuel and for pharmaceutical goods. But when our law was adopted on the circulation of fuel, tobacco, and alcohol goods, So it was linked, it was supposed to link only to the codes, and there were some codes of goods that are subject to licensing. And as you have rightfully said, only after the amendments were brought into the law, this problem was settled. Though the issue of classification is always a technical one based on some specific documents and the quality specifications and the functionality of the commodity. Based on that, the customs authorities do classification. As far as I understand, our colleagues from the Department of Customs Payment and Administrations are ready to comment upon your second question. Yes, I'm Yukhta Svetlana, a deputy head of the department. It's really true that for Zolota Mila, we had a decision on customs value adjustment. The customs clearance is done by several within the area of competence of several customs offices. We had a number of meetings with the representatives of Zolota Mila, and I think that the head of the enterprise is going to confirm this. And the number of decisions on the customs value adjustments has gone down, and the company has started providing the documents which we are asking it to provide, and normally there is no adjustment. But as far as classification of goods is concerned, we received some information from the classification administration, and this information shows that the department did not receive any complaints. Actually, you are entitled to submit a complaint to the State Customs Service before you go to court. And I think that the department dealing with classification could check the legitimacy of the decision passed not in your favor and take some measures if there is a need for that. So I think that you need to raise this issue. If you disagree with the decision, you are entitled to submit an application, to submit a complaint to the State Customs Service. Thank you. Thanks a lot for this discussion. I can see that we have a lively discussion here in the room offline. And our next question, if I may, yes, yeah, welcome, Alexander. Just a quick remark. The point is that customs value will always be our problematic story. But while preparing the new draft code, together with the working group and the experts who engage in that work, and here I would like to say special thanks to Ilya Zimbitsky. It seems to me that we develop a very good solution which has been introduced into the new customs code, but we could actually start implementing it even before it is adopted. So the moment the decision on adjustment is made, there is no point in going to anybody else but for court, because there is only a small percent of the decisions that will be changed, and that is not by any way words of that are going to insult the customs service. Just the system is built that way that unfortunately people and enterprises have to go to court. But what I'm driving at is as follows. In the process of preparation of the new draft code, we suggested a different way out. In case the customs office and the enterprise have a dispute regarding the customs value, then this complaint stage should be the one before the decision is signed. I mean that you can submit your complaint before this decision is signed, and then the complaint will be considered not by the same official who has some doubts regarding the correct customs value. It will be done by some representatives of the competence centers, which means that the decision will not be taken on that side. And based on the result of that complaint procedure, you could, well, if there is a need to submit any extra documents, that we will ask you to, and then based on this complaint procedure, the decision will be passed finally whether to do customs value adjustment or not. It seems to me that this practice could reduce the number of groundless decisions on customs value adjustment and that there is no need for going to court. So if you accept this approach, this process, then we could work with the parliament on that in order to also adjust the uh, the applicable customs code, not to be waiting until 2027. So this is like a trick, a solution that that is already proven to be good. It could really help us at our future meetings not to speak about customs value as a shameful story of failure. Well, thank you. Thanks a lot for this addition. And now let's have one more question from the
Thank
room,
you.
and then we will
My
have
name
one
is
question
Naida
from the phone.
Shamilova, and I'm from United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. My question is for Mr. Moskalenko. Thank you for your intervention related to the update on the custom code. For the last few years in Ukraine, there have been a lot of discussions on whether customs will have finally law enforcement status. I wonder whether that has been somehow reflected or factored in the new customs code. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your question. Do you have interpretation, or shall I answer in English? Yes, we do have interpretation. Okay, so in the new customs code, we do envisage the functioning within the state customs service of a specialized law enforcement department or unit that is supposed to have the right to do investigation and to do operational and search activity. So all those functions will be there. We envisage that this unit will be established as a new one, so a completely new one, and there will be a separate procedure for hiring staff. There will be selection procedures. And these will be the people who are well trained. We know that this unit should also be equipped in the right way, but the key task is as follows. For this unit to be able to function fully, we would need to introduce amendments not only to the customs code, but to the respective laws that regulate such activity. So we will need to identify the areas where they could be functioning. So in parallel with working on the establishment of this unit, we will have to follow the national revenue strategy and the mid-term implementation plan and some other like state financial strategy or the integrated border control plan. So all those strategic documents will also need to be amended. So we will be preparing the changes and amendments to the line profile laws. Thank you. Could I now ask my question? Yes, please. Thanks a lot. So my question is for Vladislav and Alexander. I'm the representative of the importer, which for a long period of time was importing solar panels, inverters, and storage batteries, which were under preference 245. We submitted customs declarations, including the preferences. However, the customs authorities took intentional actions to avoid registration of those declarations following the preferences. We met with Svetlana Yukhta and they told us reject the preferences and we will then have our goods going through the process of customs clearance. Otherwise, we would be facing delays. That was an investment project. Therefore, we really had a lot of losses. Were not able to build the solar power plant over a period of time. So that happened because of the customs. And we had to really waive our preference and submit our customs declarations repeatedly. And those customs declarations were registered on that same day. So before that, they were asking us to provide different documents, but the moment we rejected, waived those preferences, they did customs declaration registration. We then submitted the applications asking to return, to pay back the VAT to us, but we got the uh, rejection, and the losses are more than 45 million hryvnias as for now. So I would really like to get the comments from you regarding what actions we need to take for us to get the money back, the money that we paid. Thank you. Thank you, Victoria. I can see the hand raised. This is the Department of Control of the Customs State Service. Yes, thank you. So I would like to clarify it with Victoria. I don't remember having a meeting with you. What is the name of the company that you represent? Maybe you had some meetings not with me, but at the level of the customs. It was on the 19th of August 2025 that we had a meeting with you. We addressed the European Business Association. It is the company called Rosatok Energetika, or the energy development. I think that this is an issue that we have to discuss in private because I need to clarify it all. There are some commodities that are subject to exemption from taxation, but there are also some risky commodities where we run the risk of false declaration of preferences. That's why in such cases we really send letters of requesting inquiry to law enforcement agencies, and we ask companies to submit additional documents. Why so? Because such goods like solar panels normally have the price indicated somewhere in the documents in China, and we have to deal with the situation when the solar panels are registered by different importers at different costs, at different price. So there are some fluctuations. There is a range of fluctuations, but there are really some risky cases when the cost is, let's say, twice higher than that of other importers. And normally this is not about direct delivery and supply, and there is a risk of taking the money abroad. That's why we ask for additional documents. I think that we will have a separate meeting with Victoria. It could be a Zoom meeting. I'm ready to also invite you to our state customs service to really reach consensus, because while controlling the customs value, we ground our decisions on the documents submitted by businesses. So it's not a problem. We will reach you. All right, thank you. I will leave my contact data. Yeah, thanks a lot. And thanks a lot for this discussion that is also taking place after the meeting. We are happy that, in fact, we are discussing not something that really is related to everyone, but these are specific cases that will help us to solve the issue more globally. And I hope that time will come sooner or later when at such meetings we will never be discussing any specific cases or specific companies, because they can be fixed in some other way. I would like to express my gratitude to all of you for participating in this event. One more question. No further questions. So we are ready to listen to everyone, but still we have some time allocated for our meeting. So let me express my gratitude to all of you. We will go on with our meetings next year. And, you know, our discussion even at the end of this meeting shows that really we need to organize more of such events where we could probably ask questions directly, because there is a need for that felt. Thank you. We will definitely have our further meetings, and those who are in the room are heartily invited to take some coffee, which is served out there. Thank you.